I am left-leaning and an outside observer of US politics and culture. I have been watching both left and right-wing sources for about a decade now and have gained at least a reasonable idea of the landscape. Recently, I, like many, have discovered Nick Fuentes as by far the most interesting character of US political sphere right now. I have been paying a fair amount of attention to him to see what the deal actually is. More notably, I've been watching how others respond, and that has been probably the most enlightening thing of all. This video is my current left-leaning surface level take on Nick Fuentes.
Well, well, well. Would you look at the time? Would you look at the time? The broken clock is right again. Would you look at the time? Print your apology form.
I am directing this video generally towards the recently disenfranchised left. We had the Charlie Kirk shooting a few months ago, and with the many on the far left openly celebrating it. That was a linchpin moment, as a whole bunch of left-wingers realized shit had just gone too far, and now they're open to more of a broader spectrum. Well, in your fresh new embrace of the alternatives, there is one particular name you will now be hearing above all else, and that is obviously Nick Fuentes. You will also hear a lot of opinions about this guy, as regardless of whether they have actually looked into him or not, everyone feels they need to establish some position with him. To me, how you view a guy like Nick comes down to how you view the minutiae of society's priorities, because Nick is basically promoting the opposite point on that same scale. I don't like the sound of Nick's ideal utopia. I disagree with his priorities, and I occasionally with his methods. Despite this, however, Nick actually seems to be an open, honest, entertaining, and has actual legitimately good intentions, and I am rarely able to say that about other people. I disagree with Nick Fuentes, but I have no problem with him as a person or take any emotional stance with what he says. His points are considered, unlike most people. He articulates them very well and is a very funny guy. You can watch him, disagree, and still thoroughly enjoy it. I can't say that about many others. He also has some of the best videography in his streaming lobby that I've seen across the board. Christianity throughout my life has always had this level of dorkiness to it, and it's due to the aesthetic. They always seem to be trying so hard to be cool with, like, Hillsong and all those kinds of things. And it always had the opposite effect, I found. But Nick and his creators aren't trying. They're all in on the message and not trying to impress. And that, to me, is 1.1 of artistic creation. Forget the audience. Forget how they receive it or how much money it'll make. Just get your message and make it cool. This is the first time I've ever seen the Christian messaging delivered in an actually cool way. I'm atheist myself, obviously, but I am perfectly happy to have his lobby clips playing while I work. It does not change my values because I've forged my own myself, and that's what integrity is. But I can listen to theirs and gain from it because it's just done so well. Forget money. Forget the audience, just take your message and do it well. That, to me, is the essence of Nick Fuentes.
Good evening, everybody. You are watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. I am joining you tonight under some very dark circumstances. Normally, I like to say we got a great show for you tonight, and I think it's going to be an excellent show, but of course, the news is unbelievably tragic. Tonight, as you know, you're all gathered here. We're going to talk tonight about the death of Charlie Kirk.
I discovered Nick when Charlie Kirk was shot. I was aware of Charlie Kirk and had no issues with him, but as a left-leaning atheist, he simply wasn't saying anything of interest to me, so I didn't pay much attention to him. With his death, though, I started tuning in. I even downloaded X again, which I hadn't had for a couple of years, and I remember now why I deleted it. But I had heard the name Nick Fuentes maybe twice before that, but I didn't know what he looked like and hadn't heard anything he'd said, obviously. He was some white nationalist, apparently, but that's meaningless. Everyone's called that these days. But there on X, I saw that this Nick Fuentes guy had done a eulogy for Charlie Kirk. I had seen a few other eulogies here and there, and they were the usual, whatever. Again, Charlie Kirk was not of interest to me. But here was this controversial name I had heard, so I thought, okay, I'll finally find out who this guy is and get to the bottom of it.
Of course, as I said, I was not a friend of Charlie Kirk's at all. I didn't like him. He didn't like me. We had a lot of differences, ideologically, politically, and we fought viciously. And Charlie Kirk never had a kind word to say about me in his life. Now that he has died, I'll say some kind words about him. Although I didn't agree with him, I considered him a part of the political establishment. In many ways, I considered him part of the problem. In spite of that, it is undeniable that he was a towering figure in American conservatism. It's undeniable. He was ambitious. He was a hard worker. He did things I cannot do. A lot of people said after his passing, I saw some people make oblique references to it. They said, well, if Charlie Kirk was assassinated, now the far right will step up. I don't know that there's anyone that could fill his shoes. I don't know that there's anyone that can do what he did.
Nick's eulogy for Charlie Kirk was by far the most considered, eloquent, and the most humble and gracious eulogy there was. And apparently he was his opponent. They did not like each other at all, apparently, and yet he said all that and he meant it. And there were no stalls, no ums or ahs, and Nick is there in this suit and he's got this Chicago accent. He is pronounced and articulate, and it all summoned up for me this old school sort of Edward Murrow feel, that era of 20th century voices we just don't have anymore. So that piqued my interest. I looked into him on YouTube, where I was not yet aware he was banned, and there I saw all the opinions painting him as basically the worst of the worst. You've no doubt seen them. But the guy they were painting was not the guy I just saw. That simplistic racist Nazi character is simply incapable of writing, let alone delivering, a eulogy for an opponent like that. I did see some of the controversial clips where he's definitely saying controversial shit, but none of it was any different from what we've been hearing for the last decade. Not from the political level, the media level, or the street level. We've all seen plenty of people take things to that same level he does. Nick is simply swapping out the nouns. Again, I disagree with him, but who gives a shit? I also disagree with most of humanity on most things. I'm hearing no new levels of escalation here. In fact, Nick regularly promotes de-escalation, which tends to be a more superficial checkmark to everyone else.
And what I am urging at the very outset of this, at the minimum, is caution. Let us not be hasty. If you're thinking of picking up arms, put them down. And if you can't be convinced altogether, put them down today. Put them down tomorrow. Let us be cautious. Let us be prudent.
So, I wanted to learn more. I downloaded Rumble, actually watched his show, and I have regularly watched his show over the last couple of months since.
Even those that are misguided, even those that persecute us, even the most heinous among us, that is what makes us different. That is what makes us good.
Within this world of grift and eternal LARP, authenticity shines like a beacon. People are actively searching for that difference, whether they're conscious of it or not. Unfortunately, that authenticity doesn't always reveal itself in the packages you want. That's the thing with authenticity. You have no control. When I see YouTubers and influencers giving their opinions on Nick, 9 times out of 10, they have not looked into him to the level I have. They simply watch the clips cherry-picked by his opponents, and often clips from when Nick was 19, and they just react to those. Most of these people know this is not how you're supposed to do it. I've heard many of them, in fact, criticize this very tactic multiple times, yet here they are extrapolating an hour's worth of opinion from a few selective seconds. They allow the opinions of all else to drive their narrative. And we see them like wincing and performatively shaking their heads in disapproval, as if these very often Gen Xers, by the way, have suddenly forgotten what edgelord is. Like, cut the shit. Seriously, like you were teens through the 90s. You know very well what this 19-year-old is doing in these clips. If you're making an analysis on someone, you absolutely must go directly to the source. Anything less and you're just grifting. Now, I get it. I get what they're doing. What they're doing is protecting their asses. They know how radioactive Nick is, and he is becoming too big to not comment on it. They have these established platforms, and they cannot afford any associations with his views, so it's just easier for them to avoid it and deal with the wrapping paper instead. I have nothing to lose. I've got no audience, no money, no network to disown me, so I'm trying to take the opposite approach and actually getting to the points themselves. As I said, the only difference between Nick's wrapping paper and the mainstream that I've seen are the nouns. Meanwhile, Nick actually seems like a genuinely good guy. He just does. He's open, he's honest, he adamantly speaks against violence, and wishes nothing but good for even his opponents. Now, is he racist? Well, Nick and his supporters would use the word racialist, but to me, that's a pretty fine line. It's clear to me he doesn't hate other races, but what I find though is when you're leaning on it so heavily, you wind up getting the same result as if you did. It's pointless semantics as far as I'm concerned. The issues themselves I'm going to get to in a minute, but I'm just wanted to point out that I'm seeing nothing new here. Nick Fuentes is no worse than possibly you or the majority of humanity that you see and know. He is staunchly Christian, I am atheist, and many of you disenfranchised left will be the same. There is a huge movement towards Christianity happening at the moment, and this is nothing new. It's just what happens when people lose value in life, and you're going to see a lot more of this over the coming years. Many of you left-leaners might be alarmed by this, but I've been out of the left-wing groups for about a decade now, and I'm here to tell you straight up, don't worry. Christians are completely fine. They can even be some of the best people you will meet. Obviously, it's case-by-case basis, but the pillars of Christianity are good, noble ideals, and occasionally you will meet people who actually follow those principles. Nick Fuentes is one of those who actually walks the Christian walk. He forgives, wishes the best for all, and treats others how he wishes to be treated.
This is the test. It's easy to believe in prayer when things are easy. It's easy to believe in God, mercy, forgiveness, temperance when things are easy. It's when things are hard, when they're confusing, when we feel justifiably angry, wrathful, prideful. That's the test. That's when it counts. And that is when mature people, and I recognize the folly in me saying that. I don't consider myself an extremely mature person. I think I'm a frivolous person in many ways. But it's an obligation for all of us to grow up now and recognize.
He definitely gets short and blatant with people when he is tired and annoyed. You just have to watch him deal with his super chats to see that. But so do I. And likely you too. He says the quiet part out loud and in public, but the only reason I can see people consider him to be so vile, and they really do go over the top when talking about him, is because Nick, again, swaps out the nouns, and in doing so, he exposes who they are. This has become no more apparent than in one topic in particular.
We can't be held hostage by this country forever. When will it end? When will any leader put their foot down and reassert American sovereignty? Do we run the world or does Israel? Do we even run?
Did you see the way she was looking at me?
She's a Nazi, George, a Nazi.
I know. Kind of a cute Nazi, though. 911. She said she'd do anything. Yeah, hello, police? Yeah, listen, we're in the back of a limo in Queens. AstroTurf. You know who's responsible for that, don't you? The Jews.
So to give a most basic rundown, the landscape of the US right wing is now entirely boiling down to a single issue: is America first versus Israel first. Nick, as far as I'm concerned, is now the core of America first. The idea of putting America first started with MAGA, that was Trump, and it was independent of Israel, focused exclusively upon immigration and foreign trade. But you can't make that an issue and not have people focus on foreign influence, and that's what Nick did. Nick got the name for his movement, America First, from that, but he has been vocal about Israel from the start. Many other voices are criticizing the Israeli influence as well, like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Candace is gone, lost to an echo chamber of grift and paranoia. I don't even watch her. Tucker, meanwhile, I have always found to have this applied performative veneer. Like he'll play innocent and curious on the surface level, while the real Tucker underneath has long researched every minutiae about whatever subject he has purposefully led the conversation towards. But make no mistake, Tucker's interview with Nick was not about Nick. It was about Tucker appealing to Gen Z and sweeping the gropers. Get into the habit of watching people behind the eyes. There's a lot more going on there than you might think. So now the traditionalist right and elected Republicans are generally Israel first. They won't say that. They will adamantly voice their love for America, of course, but they are evidently pro-Israel. I mean, evidently so. Anyone who voices differing opinions immediately has their political opponents funded by a horde of individual donors directed by Israeli lobbies. It's just how it works. So it's far safer to just sign on and go pro-Israel. It is not controversial to say this. That's just the basics of how lobbies work. Every lobby, not just the Israeli lobby. It just so happens that this one in particular is immense in its influence. Where Nick differs in the narrative is that he refers to an underlying collective cultural agenda shared by the
Jews.
Regardless of the individual's political or spiritual beliefs, Nick states that the
Jews
stick together and work together for the benefit of Israel and their ethnicity. Nick also repeatedly, though, says that not all of them. Now, is he right in this? No idea. I literally don't know if I have even met a Jewish person before. I probably have, but this is a complete non-factor for me. My experience with the
Jews
is that they made the best comedies of the 80s and 90s. That's it. Now, unfortunately for
the Jews,
the pro-Israeli lobbies seem to be doing very little to disprove the conspiracies. In fact, you see this most evidently not through what Nick is saying, but in their reaction to what Nick is saying. Before, it was just conspiracy theory. I had always heard of that myself, but again, this is just what lobbies do. But Chuck Schumer then goes and addresses the Senate to denounce Nick Fuentes. They're buying TikTok and Paramount to stamp out anti-Semitism. Multiple coalitions are meeting to talk about the ways to gatekeep institution, and it's like, holy shit, dude, the conspiracy is actually real. Like, way to blow your own foot off there, guys. Like, maybe take a step back and look at the optics for a moment. You're not doing yourselves any favors. Something in Osama bin Laden's strategy really resonates for me here. The flea does not damage the dog. It causes an irritation. The dog's own response, the vigorous scratching in order to dislodge the flea, that is what does the damage. I am not convinced that focusing upon this Jewish cultural unity is inherently anti-Semitic. We see the Chinese do the same thing. They too have this shared trauma from history where they are the eternal victim. And this has naturally forged this sort of special underlying unity and exclusivity. It's not racist against Chinese to observe that. You could certainly take it up to the level of racism, but I am not convinced that is what Nick is doing here with
the Jews.
As for the influence of Israel over Western politics, I have had a strong interest in geopolitics for my entire adult life. I've written multiple book series and have done a lot of research on the Middle East in particular. It's not evident to me that the clear influence Israel has over the US, the UK, and by extension the West is entirely beneficial to us. In fact, it feels quite the opposite. A substantial amount of the damage done to the West, economically, geopolitically, to our efficiency, to our reputation over the last 30 years, can be tied in no small part to the influence of Israel. Probably going back further than that. Now, I do not blame Israel exclusively for it. A lot really is just about oil and personal opportunism. Dick Cheney did not need Israel to convince him to shaft billions of dollars in reconstruction deals. When an animal is wounded, jackals feast. That's how humans work. But without the influence of America's greatest ally, a lot of the excuses and rhetoric don't fuel that fire. A lot of the Western loss also seems to greatly benefit Israel while costing them nothing in return. As a citizen of America's actual closest ally, who actually assists them and pays the price alongside them, who plays a key strategic part in the containment of their actual global threat, as to why the Israelis gain such blatant benefit and favor at the expense of the West while providing nothing but trouble and expense in return, that is a legitimate question, and one that is not racist to ask. But the jig is up. Popular opinion is turning against them. I think they know it, and to me, their response is doing by far the most damage to their own cause. Dude, they could not be screwing this up worse. That it is so blatant, so reactionary, so ignorant to public optics. It is so self-exposing. It is actually wild to see how unsophisticated the pro-Israeli camps actually are. The instant something goes wrong and they completely lose their shit. They are forcing people to call their allegiance, which only forces moderates away from them and to adopt Nick's side. How could you possibly ever expect a non-Jewish American with no ties to Israel to choose Israel over the US? Like, why would they do that? Yet you are forcing them to choose a side when the incentives are stacked monumentally against you. How moronic is that? How blind is that? All Nick Fuentes has to do now is keep going and remain consistent. He doesn't even need to leave his home, and they will expose themselves, disrupt themselves, and sabotage themselves down into oblivion. Israel right now, I think, is in the most critical time of its existence, and it is 100% their own fault.
We paved the way with our corpses. Reuters and all the alt-righters that got banned, all the alt-righters that got slandered, even people that killed themselves. Our corpses paved the way for you now to walk over. And you can't give us acknowledgement. Now you want to slam the door on us. It's not right. It's not right.
This leads on to Nick's infamous "Hitler is awesome" quote. So, first up, he said that when he was 19. I emphasize 19. Like, that's it. Discussion over as far as I'm concerned. This is just a waste of time, and you know it's just a cherry-picked gotcha moment from his opponents. It's like the recent glaze of Stalin he made in the Tucker Carlson interview. As far as I can tell, Nick simply commends the great men of history. In fact, he said that multiple times. So yeah, that's it. And if you don't understand the difference there, like if you're trying to make that out to be anything worse, then well, you're just a dishonest person as far as I'm concerned, and I consider you to be more of a problem than me. I don't like Hitler or Stalin personally, for objective reasons. Like I can pick not just the emotional, they're evil reasons. I can go through and pick individual reasons why I don't agree that they are even great men. Well, they're great men in terms of their impact, but I think they could have done it a lot better, so there are notable points where I disagree with that assessment of them, but I'm not going to spend time talking about this. I'm not going to bother monetizing this channel, or at least it won't be a priority. What I have are my books. Yeah. So, can you see that? I've been writing for my entire adult life. I used to have a bunch of them available online, but I took them down through the pandemic. I have been reworking them over this last year, and the first I am re-releasing is Valencia. This is part of the Isa universe, of which there are several large and small books on the way, plus a tabletop game I'm designing. Distant sci-fi, AI, genetic engineering, and philosophy on core human values and how they might relate to when we get ourselves out there. Now, I don't hold back on things. It is adult in nature, but that's because life is adult in nature. And I don't write genre, I write events with people in them. Ebook, print book, no audio book yet. I don't have the money for it. I've tried to do audiobooks myself, but I'm just doing too much other shit. I don't have the time. I've got a whole bunch of others coming. I'll Drive Through 5 is not available now. I've taken it down. That's going through a rewrite. Plus the extended Sayara series, which is available from. It has another 5 other series which are attached to it. Near future geopolitics. A couple of books on the First Crusade, some in 1600s Asia, one in 1800s Caribbean, and a full-size mature-length Star Wars trilogy, which I normally have for free via my website, but I am redesigning the covers for that right now because I'm just wrapping up the 3rd book. So a lot coming down the track, but for now, bless ya, the Isa series available now via the link below.
Holocaust denier named Nick Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes.
He's back!
Jesus Christ was our past. Jesus Christ is our present now. And Jesus Christ is our future after we die on earth. We want this century to be the most Christian century in the history of planet Earth.
So before I get to race, I'll focus on women. Nick's homophobia as well, I think is a waste of time, but he's Catholic, so, what are you going to do? By contemporary standards, Nick is sexist, yeah. He doesn't hate women, but he certainly doesn't respect them, and which is basically the same thing as far as I'm concerned. His main point is the issue of women in politics and leadership. He says he loves women, and you will hear that a lot from traditionalist types. But what that means, though, is that they love individual women who adhere to the defined personal checklist of gender roles. I am the left-winger here, but you will not hear me say I loved women. I don't. Some of them are cunts. Others, meanwhile, I name as the most influential people in my life. That's the thing, like, you cannot cherry-pick this shit. If you only respect a particular group when they adhere to the narrow confines you allow for them, well, then you don't respect the group. Nick criticizes the Jews for placing themselves over Goys. How is this not the same thing? Either you respect a group or you don't. The good news for Nick is that plenty of women will adhere to his standards just fine. He has groupies by the horde, and he hates them each individually down to the very last. With Nick, I think his rejection of women lies in something a bit deeper, but that's none of my business. Point is, the day he opens the door to that, there will be plenty there waiting to meet that list, and good for them. Like, trad wives, go for it, get yours. You ain't for me, I ain't for you, but we'll get along just fine. The red pill and manosphere types all talk about this idealistic woman archetype. But that's a character you're talking about, and you write characters, you control them, they're not real human beings. Believe that if you wish, but I cannot agree with this view because that would be straight out lying to myself. I have simply had too many examples in my life to prove otherwise. Most of my life has been filled with very good and close female friends. I had mostly male friends, but there was always a close female friend or two that I regularly called and hung out with. All of my flatmates, bar one, have been female, and I stayed close friends with most of them. No relationships, they were basically just sisters. You want to call that gay, say men and women can't be friends, all that bullshit, fine, go ahead, you do you. It's just a simple case of switching it off, and that's it. My closest friend now is an Arab bisexual atheist woman in Saudi Arabia. An entirely open, easygoing, relatable person. You can hack the shit out of her and she just laughs and plays it back just like my male friends. She works a very intense job requiring a lot of articulation and a high level of management, and she's always on her feet, and she nails it. She was working her role at one point and that of another above her for 6 days a week because, Saudi work culture sucks ass. But she was pulling it off. And then meanwhile maintaining an active social life, intense exercise, and rescuing a shit ton of cats because, that's just her thing. Now, would she be a good leader? Dunno. She is high anxiety and emotionally driven, as is the female cliche. But I've also worked with a lot of bitches with dicks. And they're everywhere in management roles. And I know those fucks could not handle what she does. Like, not a fucking chance. I have seen women pull off management roles just fine. I have also seen them fuck it up. Absolutely. And it's usually through indecision and trying to prove themselves. I have seen more men fuck it up, but that's naturally because I have seen more male managers. Men usually fuck it up due to pride and an inability to adjust. Leadership is something else, and it entirely depends on what it is you're trying to lead. Just because you're in a management position, even at a high level, that does not make you a leader. Most managers simply do what they're told and prioritize their own security. They follow their superiors, they're the investors, or the industry's greater conventions. That is not leadership. Leadership is decisiveness, awareness, humility, and compromise. Women are often indecisive. Men are fucking useless with compromise. Neither tend to know what humility even means, and no one these days makes any attempt to find out what's actually going on. Neither men nor women make good leaders. That is something you can only grade on the individual level. There are several examples of women-only companies collapsing, but it's safe to say those companies were shit companies with shit leaders. Like, taking a purely political approach towards hiring means that you are not hiring the best. If the same company had a policy to hire only the best, and the best just happened to be all women, I am willing to believe that there would have been a different outcome there. There's a wallaby outside the window. Oi. Oi. Now, are women generally more domestically lent than men? Sure, why not? It makes perfect biological and evolutionary sense for that to be the case. But I don't care if 90% of women are better suited to stay at home, because that says nothing for that next individual who walks through the door. I don't think Nick has such examples visible in his own life. His experience in this is minimal. That is not an insult. He is a self-reporting incel, and I get it. I myself no longer bother with relationships. But there are 4 billion women. Like, your human mind cannot conceive how many that is. Yet somehow they're a monolith. Like, you know all 4 billion men are not the same. You know that. Nick literally does not know what he is talking about here, and so I do not consider his opinions in this matter at all. Now, do I have trouble with him saying this stuff? No. Because for the last 10 years, we have heard nothing but the exact same shit coming from women about men. Yes, it was a minority of hardcore feminists who were saying that stuff, but the majority did nothing to counter it either. It has been encouraged to become the mainstream view solely through the inaction of moderate women. Many a time, I have sat at a table where some obnoxious bitch has spouted out far worse than anything Nick has said about women, and I have specifically watched every other woman present for their response. None of them ever said a goddamn word. So, ladies, go fuck yourselves. You made this bed, you sleep in it. You want that 6'3" Minotaur Chad to pick you? Well, then try growing some balls. That's the thing with people. You need to show them you might actually be worth a shit. Nick, I disagree with you, but Godspeed. They absolutely deserve it.
Don't fucking play with me. Don't tell, oh, we're all over here. We're all over here doing what? Being 10 years behind the ball? You're all over here, and you always will be over there. You're damn fucking that. You're all over there, and I'm all alone over here, 5 years ahead of everybody, light years ahead of everybody, standing alone. Like the difference between you and me. I don't wait. I don't wait for yesterday's news tomorrow. I'm tomorrow's news today. And in a year, when it all comes out that it was Tyler Robbins, that Israel had nothing to do with it, you'll be looking like an asshole because you people are followers. You're followers. And that's just true. You know, I can't believe it's like my credibility's called into question. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know who these people are, actually. I have no idea who Candace Owens is in her weirdo fucking life. I got started at 18 years old doing a YouTube live stream. She got started 18 years old suing her white boyfriend for calling her a...
Now for Nick's focus upon race and religion, and this is directly linked to his view on the West. Here lies my main point of contention. To focus too much on race, sex, and religion, even geography to a current extent, is, I think, detrimental and counter to the core tenement of the West. Nick's ideal utopia and my own are very different, but even then, I make no emotional investment in my disagreements here. Even in his particular focus upon racial identity and characteristics, I do not consider him disgusting or a rat. Like, that's just overperformative virtue signaling bullshit. Like, are we court jesters now? Is that what's going on here? Like, let's just turn it down a notch. I think Nick wastes a lot of time and energy on race. But there is nothing Nick has done that we have not already seen ad nauseum from voices in media and politics street side for the last 10 years. He is at least funny about it. And the sole difference, I think, is Nick swaps out the nouns. Is he racist? I know most of you are. Try having a Chinese girlfriend. Try working in a Taiwanese company like I did a while back. You'll know what racism is, dude. And I didn't care then, and I don't care now, because they were good people and it's all about intention. That's the point.
So they're always coming up with, no, it's not the
eunuchs,
no, it's not
concubines,
no, it's not
Mongolians.
It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all.
Eunuchs,
Running society,
concubines,
need to shut the fuck up,
Mongolians,
need to be imprisoned for the most part, and we would live in paradise.
under the mandate of heaven.
It's literally that simple.
If you're saying his opinions are despicable because he is white, well then that is race exceptionalism. You are placing white people to a different standard to the rest because to you they are the one race who is above all their primitive behaviour.
Are we the baddies?
Congratulations, you're a fucking racist. At the very most, he is no worse than you. In fact, look at Nick Fuentes' friends and who he meets with. I literally see him with more non-white guys than with white guys. His favourite human is Kanye West. He is always hanging out with Sneeko. I mean, if he is actually a legitimate Nazi, he sucks at it. What he wants is to live in a white and black society, because that is how America was. He seems to be accepting of the multicultural status quo of like 20 to 30 years ago, so like Asians, Mexicans, but with dramatically throttled immigration. He would also prefer to live personally in a homogenous white immediate society, so neighborhood or town, especially Catholic, because that's the culture he prefers. Dude, what is the problem with that? Look around. We've had Chinatowns in every city for decades. I used to live in the Italian district of Melbourne. It was great. You've got the Lebanese communities in Sydney. You've got African communities who homogenize, especially when they're Islamic. There's nothing new or even controversial in what he is after. If your problem with him is that he is white, then you're the problem. Now, personally, I find focusing too hard on race to be a waste of time. It is a waste of time coming from Nick. It is a waste of time coming from everyone else. But all of you obviously love it. So that's that. If he wants to live in a white-only society, go ahead. I couldn't care less. If I want a good burger and a craft beer, if I want a good Sunday breakfast, that's where I'll go. My focus is cultural, not genetic. I consider such definition to be going backwards. But I'm not taking issue with him or you in wanting to live with your own. It really does seem to be what the majority of humankind prefer. Yes, there are differences. Men and women are different. Who gives a shit? Races as well are so visibly different that I have to assume such differences extend beneath the skin. Like, it's just logic. Why wouldn't that be the case? But also, who gives a shit? That just makes the jokes better, as far as I'm concerned. I strongly prefer a variety of skin tones, visual styles, architecture, music, and I love accents. I want to see that stuff around. In primary school, my best friend was from Papua New Guinea. In high school, my best friend was from Indonesia. Outside of school, my lifelong friends were four white Italian brothers who lived right next door to me, and we would roam the neighborhood with both guys and girls, mostly white, sure, but no one gave a shit, and we just hung out. I have dated all across the spectrum, Japanese, Chinese, Brazilian, Indian, Russian, local Aussie white chicks as well, and an American white chick too. All were great. I never had a falling out with any one of them regardless of skin tone or culture. I am inherently progressive, obviously, so therefore I love variance. I understand the need for conservatism. I have another video on that on the way, by the way. But order and chaos are two ends of the same scale. They cannot be isolated, and the ideal lies between. A focus upon identity politics is a waste of time. It was a waste of time with the left. It is a waste of time with the right. Where my preferences become defined is that I am pro-West. Western culture, to me, is the way forward for humanity. It just is. Now, obviously I am biased because I am Western, but I am yet to see a strong argument to counter that. No other culture allows for such variance. Within Western culture, you experience the most, you converse the most, you share the most, you learn the most, innovate the most, and that's just the natural human way. All other cultures can exist to a moderate level under the Western umbrella. It does not work the other way around. The West definitely does not work under Islam, under communism, and it does not work under Catholicism. Nick Fuentes' idea of the West is not the West.
And make sure all the school teaching the children how to be a homosexual, and make sure they all teach about the transgender. So that is what important to me.
Now, it is true that the West was Catholic at one point, but that period I would class as being West 2.0. Right now we are in West 3.0, my ideal is 4.0, which is independent of geography and where all other cultures exist under a common westernized ideal. Now, this is not open borders, as cultures hold themselves to their geographic homeland, while the economy and technology is shared globally. Individuals can immigrate wherever to any culture, but with an expectation to assimilate into that host culture. So all cultures are upheld under a common framework with all flourishing and complementing each other. Now, is this pie in the sky? Am I dreaming here? No. Because we've done that very same thing countless times already on a per country basis. It is also by far more achievable than half the shit you guys believe in. You can hone upon the word of Christ or Muhammad and divide everyone up into the acceptable and the not. I hone upon the transcendence of humanity and getting us out there where we need to be. Everyone and their varied perspectives are an asset to that, equally. Stick only to what you know, and all you'll ever get is what you know. Well, fuck that. No one culture offers anywhere near enough for all. But there is one that functions better than the rest as a system of unity. The reason for that is because it doesn't restrict itself to a single religion like Christianity. The West 1.0 was Greece, Rome, and their Mediterranean concepts of philosophical debate and democracy. It was not Christian. Christianity was not European. It spread throughout the Middle East and then Africa before it reached Europe. Emperor Constantine established Christianity in Rome, and that solidified it as a foundation. Rome then split in half. Constantinople was east, and the original city of Rome became the west. I would call this West 1.2. The Western Roman Empire then collapsed, sending Europe into what they call the Dark Ages. What held Europe together was indeed Christianity, because all the disparate towns and European cultures at least shared that common glue. And it was through Christianity that Charlemagne then united Europe under his Carolingian Empire. That is the West 1.5. Rome was still around in this time. Constantinople was known as Byzantium, but they called themselves Roman. They too were Christian, but they were not the West. Christianity is not the West. In fact, Christianity itself then split in what they call the Schism, Eastern Orthodox and Latin Catholicism. That was West 2.0, and it was indeed Catholic, yes. No arguments there from me. But why are you stopping there? Over several hundred years, the encroachment and threat of Islam's first caliphate and the Islamic slave raids really honed the West with this unifying muse of Christianity. This culminated through teaming up with the East briefly for the First Crusade. Christianity was the uniting force for Europe at that time. Despite being so constantly divided by factions and war, they were Christian. Even the Norsemen were now all Christian by this time and essentially becoming part of the West. But it is in this rivalry between many kingdoms and prefectures, and also such a dogged pursuit of commerce, where you find innovation. In the European mind also remained the legacies of the West 1.0, that Roman utopia, that reminder of how things can be. The Black Plague also reset the balance and between the peasants and nobility. Labour suddenly became so much more highly valued, so peasants themselves gained more autonomy and creativity. Add the printing press to that, and you gain a voice for the common man. With that came the Protestant Reformation. Catholicism actively tried to hinder innovation and diversity. That's what the Inquisition was about, because Catholicism is authoritarian at its core, inherently anti-West. You cannot say the Protestant countries were not part of the West. You can say the Orthodox Christian East was not. The West 2.5 included both Catholicism and Protestantism, but it was innovative, scientific, and philosophical at its core. Global trade brought things like coffee and tea to spread throughout Europe, and that in itself changed the game. You got to remember, water back then was generally not safe to drink, so the social drink was ale and mead. You're not discussing deep concepts on ale, but with these new fads of tea houses and coffee houses, you're starting to get some deep philosophical discussions coming through, things like scientific theory and debate. That brings enlightenment. The French Revolution, emancipation, the British war on slavery, it brings Napoleon, the concept of total war, and the stepping stones to industrialization. It brings Darwinism, evolutionary science, freedom of expression, the separation of church and state, and secularism. That sure ain't Christian. It absolutely is the West, but because without any of that, you don't get the United States. The West 3.0. The US, Commonwealth, Europe, the Nordic countries, and so on. It is there you start seeing cultures and races intermixing and Western concepts showing up non-geographically. Add the internet to that and it's a supercharger. The West is not Christian. It's just not. You will hear these American Christians like Fuentes and Matt Walsh, Tucker Carlson, Christian culturalists like Jordan Peterson. You'll hear them spout out this idea that the West is Christian, and that is just straight up evidently not true. It was an important pillar in its foundation, but you can remove that pillar just fine. You can bring in Christianity, Islam, communism, pagan, Viking, tribalism. You can bring in transhumanism. It all fits. It all works. It's all just a matter of moderation. Christians just want it for themselves because, just like their Muslim and Jewish brothers, they don't like to share. And the pro-Zionists try the same shit. They try to play that somehow the Hebrew Bible was what held the West together. So this implies that they weren't persecuted all throughout Europe, and they actually took a guidance role with us dumbass Europeans. So the Rhineland massacres, the Eastern pogroms, they were what, sermons? Did Hitler just get too excited for his passion for the truth? Like, dude, you gotta be out of your fucking mind to try pull that shit. The level of delusion and gaslighting is laughable. Modern Israel, founded in the 20th century from persecuted European immigrants. It is a byproduct of the West. It is an offcut. We'll put this to bed right now. The Torah had no influence upon Europe's development at all. Both of you, Christians, Jews, enough with this revisionist bullshit. How would you ever be able to drive the West? You clearly do not have humanity's best interests at heart. Clearly. You only ever promote you, and you would bail on the rest of us in a flash. But you're both welcome in my West. The Jewish communities, Nick Fuentes' white homogenous Catholic utopia, moderate Islamic communities, Chinatowns, blue haired, Guna, Karen, suicide cults. We'll wave to them all as we orbit past on our way out to mining Saturn's rings. Maybe we'll toss down Nick some of our cancer cures, because this culture sure as fuck ain't inventing any of that. Dude, they don't even believe in dinosaurs. Like, good luck. But we've got you covered, because that's what the West is about. The open expression and discussion of countering views and supporting Nick Fuentes to say whatever he likes. You can either be inherently competitive or inherently cooperative. The West is the latter, and that is what it makes it the only way forward.
Thank you so much, everybody. Can I just say, are you trusting the brand ads?
Now, there are potential issues I see forming with Nick Fuentes in terms of ego and buying into his own echo chambers, but that is not exclusive to him. We've seen it in Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, and many others, or all of us are acceptable to that, so I'll make a separate video. How do I summarize my left-leaning atheist take on Nick Fuentes? He's absolutely fine.